What? There's no ToeJam Earl? What the fuck?
Hello humans and welcome to another episode of Gen X Gamer. That's right, the video game show that is not hosted by an annoying e-beggar. There is no Patreon, no super chats. That's right, we just talk about the games we love and how fun it is to hoard them. Collect them. Now, with that said, let's get ready for the show. On today's episode, this show is intended for mature audiences only. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hello humans and welcome to another episode of Gen X Gamer. Let's talk about the Amico again, huh? But from a business point of view. First of all, I have to give props here to the No Swear Gamer. 3 days ago, I think he made the most important video as far as news regarding business. I'll tell you about the Amico. I watch a lot of videos, but most of them are just over the same stuff over and over again. And at some point it becomes just being a dead horse, right? There's very little new to analyze that hasn't been said already 500 times, right? But when there is something new, I want to chime in, and give my opinion. This right here, I think, is business-wise the most important and most concerning, right, news regarding the Amico. Let me tell you this. It is really hard for any company, right, to put out a console and software at the same time. And even giants can't win that race sometimes. The perfect example is the Wii U, right? The Wii U couldn't do it. They couldn't overcome the challenge of not having third-party games. As big as a catalog as Nintendo has, they couldn't do it because it's hard to do your hardware, launch a console, and then on top of that make AAA games for every genre. You just can't do it, right? And what is the challenge of most companies is bringing those third parties in to make games. But what happens when you're smaller, right? What happens, that happened to Nintendo, that's a huge company. What happens when you're smaller, right? I think it was a mistake when you see the noviceness, right? The inexperience come in. The negotiation process of any company is when they announce something before having a contract. That's 101, man. You don't announce anything until that contract is signed, right? And unfortunately, they announced this game and talked about it, without having anybody signing on the dotted line. Now, a lot of things can change, so let me give you some scenarios that could have happened, right? I'm not saying that these happened, but I just want to show you examples of what can happen in this type of negotiation. When you're a smaller company, right, and you don't have that many consoles out there, maybe in the beginning, I'm not saying this happened, okay, just hypothetically, right, there's two companies, company A, company B, negotiating. Company A is making the console, company B wants to make a game for the console, right? And company A says, well, I think I'm going to sell about 1 million, 2 million consoles, in the first couple of years. Company B says, okay, yeah, okay, that sounds kind of cool. And they start negotiating about what it is that they want. They're going back and forth, they're outlining contract. And all of a sudden, company B finds out that there's not going to be 2 million. Maybe there's less than 1 million, okay? Now, the price changes. Why does the price change? It's because that publisher eventually is going to get, depending on who's negotiating with, right, may get anywhere as far as a net profit, right, anywhere from 5 to 30% of whatever game he's working on, right? And they have to take that chance. Well, if you're only going to make, 5%, but the most you could ever sell is maybe 100,000 games, in the best case scenario, it might not be enough to cover the cost of the game, right? It just might not be enough. So what happens in that case? What did Nintendo do in that case? They had to pay up front. They had to pay up front the fee and pay developers up front the money they were asking for to develop or port the game over to their system. Now, and not everybody can do that. Nintendo, to their credit, did it for a while, right? Because if you're not going to sell enough units, why even port it to a game? If you're not going to sell enough units to cover your cost, why are you going to port it to a console? It doesn't make sense. It's a losing proposition. On the other side of the fence, right, you have the console manufacturer having, company B asking you, hey, you know what, you need to give me, X amount guaranteed, 30% guaranteed, which is the maximum, right? Well, how do you know the game's not going to suck? You pay all this money up front to have this company come and make your game, and you have zero guarantees that it's going to be any good, right? So both companies have to negotiate something that's beneficial for both, right? But when you're the console maker, you're always at a disadvantage because the blood of any game console is those games, is those third-party games, are games that people want to come in and play in a different setting. Now, before, you can go back and look at the video. These were going to be exclusive games, yada, 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 which never should have been a thing. And in my point of view, business-wise, it doesn't make sense. But that's what they said. Now, we find out the game is not going to be console exclusive. It's going to be everywhere. Well, what kind of content are you going to have for this particular console, right? What kind of, changes are you going to make to the game? Well, if they're only going to make a different color shirt for a character, for example, and they want 30% up front, does it make sense? No, right? Maybe, the company gave them a price and it was a little too rich for their blood, and they said, you know what, for that amount of money I can have these other two games made. But it's always a losing proposition when you announce it first, right? When a company says, like this company said, there was a breakdown in communications, it means the price was too high for that company. That's exactly what it means. The game is still being made, right? It's just not being sold to this company. In my experience, again, I'm not saying this is what happened, but in my experience, I've had to guess. If you give me $100 and I had to bet on it, my bet is that the company's asking more money than Intellivision is willing to pay. Now, could that be fixed? It should, in my opinion, right? This is why I'm concerned, is because you need third-party attention on this console. Those are bragging rights, unless the company's giving you such a high number that they don't really want you, they don't really want to make a game for you, you would let it go. But from what I hear from this company, they're willing to make the game and they're open to it. They just haven't had the right incentive, right? That's a problem, because those are the games you need to advance. If you look at it, the games that they are planning to launch, the physical games, are not sold out yet, right? So you have to listen to your customers. Customers are saying, those ain't it, right? As much as I may love them, or anybody else may love them out there, the general public hasn't bought in yet. That's not the quality of games they're willing to buy bundles for. They spoke. That should be a real big red flag for you, right? I bet you if you put out something like Flying Tigers by itself on a physical edition, that would blow out, right? So you have a game made by a third party, which just by looking at the game, I love the aesthetics of that game, right? And a lot of people, even if they don't like the Amico, think that that's a decent looking game, right? Not the best, but right now it outshines a lot of the games that are produced by Amico, by Intellivision, right? That's one of the better looking games. Rigid Force Redux is another good looking game, right? But again, those aren't Intellivision retro reimagines or anything. The ones that people are excited for are not being shown. And now you have a third party saying, hey, they're just not coming to the table. That worries me, because at this point, right, with all the BS and problems that you have, the last thing you want is a company giving the impression that you're not willing to come to the table with the cheddar after all that investment, right? Now, I don't know the particulars, okay? I'm not saying I'm speaking the truth here or anything like that. I'm just speculating, right? But this is the kind of speak you hear all the time in negotiations, right? This is the kind of speak you hear. And that's a bad signal for other companies to hear, right? Because now if you're a third-party developer listening to this, what does that tell you? Get your money first. And that makes it harder for you to negotiate with other companies that are willing to bring their properties to you, right? So I really wish they resolve this. They should. They should just write the check, whatever that check is, right? Because this is, if you know, whether you like it or not, this would be a good thing to have on the Amico, right? But in general, you know, their business plan, it's not one that I agree with. I think they're leaving a lot of money on the table by the way they're doing business, but that's a subject for another video. These were just my thoughts. Once again, credit to the No Swear Gamer for bringing this up. It's probably, I think, the most interesting subject of the week for me, and I will catch you on the next one. Take care.
New videos every weekend and whenever I feel like it. Oh yeah, almost forgot. Ring that bell.